Hello and welcome to Sanctuary. This is a new-ish visual novel, which came out a while ago, but only like its first part, not really much else. It centers around this guy over here on the right, who finds himself in a new world, but he is not the protagonist. He is the protagonist's partner, or I guess you should say the protagonist is their partner. That's more or less all I know. I know that he has a really long name, which I will not be able to pronounce, so I will only be shortening it. So yeah, in case you're wondering, why aren't you pronouncing his name? Because it's long, and it sounds weird. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I know. I don't know how long ago the first this came out, so whether or not they update in a timely fashion or it takes months or something, it's up to the developer. But yeah, so I guess without further ado, let us begin Sanctuary. My name is the default. The bird calls stir your peaceful slumber. You struggle against the warm allure of the bed for a moment, but eventually you force your eyelids open. It's the same old wooden ceiling of a tavern room, the dingy walls dimly lit by the light rays passing through the window. You've grown accustomed to it as you've been a long-term resident of this room for something around 5 months. Some may see it as a sign of wealth, but renting a room is actually the cheapest option thanks to your background. With some luck, you've landed yourself a job to hunt and deliver game to this large tavern on a weekly basis. Your job. It's common for guilds, societies, and organizations to hire an outsider for specific tasks. This offers more freedom but less privileges, which is usually preferred by younger adventurers. So they also have like this little hover over text and stuff happens. For your troubles, the owner offered a discount on the tavern services, including cheaper rooms upstairs. With a week-based patronage that cuts even more costs, buying a home of your own is simply inflexible and inferior. You've already grown used to sleeping through the dampened noise of the tavern as well, so the only downside is that life feels a little stagnant right now. It is usually a dormant thought, one that reawakens whenever you feel self-conscious of your current affairs. It happens sometimes in the morning, such as now. You distract yourself with a view of the streets outside as you walk closer to the window to take a look at the bustling street dwellers. Moonrest, capital of Arth, supposedly filled with young aspiring adventurers, but the view remains uninspiring and insipid today. Not tempted to look for challenges, you stretch and do your morning routine before walking downstairs with your equipment and belongings in hand. Light enters through the stained glass panels into the tavern, illuminating the locale along with the dim lanterns to create quite a gloomy, morose scene. Unlike the lively nights, only a small number of individuals remain here in the early morning. The barkeep wipes the bottles of alcohol clean, then moves onto the mugs and glasses. Other patrons either wait for their food or enjoy their meal, chatting and keeping alive the hospitality of the establishment. Fair adventurers check out the notice board to see if there are any new quests for the taking. And you, an average wolf, who steps into the boredom and mundaneness of your daily routine. You order a decently big breakfast from a waiter and purchase today's newspaper. You take some time to go through the notable news from each continent, but most of the politics aren't relevant to you. The current geopolitical states trace back to 300 years ago, when a colossal clash between 3 religious armies occurred. At its culmination, the land itself couldn't withstand the destruction and devastation and split into 9 smaller regions. Modern land. The modern continents consist of Arth, Galiloria, Asterik, Trian, Marshlands, Night Hollow, and the trio of smaller islands often known as rich isles, I guess. Miker, Holy, and Heron, you have lived in Arth your entire life. Sometime after this, unknown forces started appearing in the depths of the sea, now known as the Abyss. Lurking underneath the massive sea closest to the Night Hollow and Marshlands is an unknown, aggressive force. It is speculated that it is the cause of the appearance of monsters north of Marshlands, but a direct correlation hasn't been found. The different climates and conditions of each continent gave rise to unique advantages and numerous political affairs. How frustrating. I can't act in response to reading about these things, but there's no other way to stay informed. You flip through a few more pages. No job opportunities today either. Oh well. You put your newspaper away as the waiter returns with the food. As you eat, you plan your day around the only job that you have, spending a few hours hunting wildlife, then delivering them to the tavern at dusk. The deadline is in 3 days, more than sufficient. If I get lucky, perhaps I'll meet the quota today. With your skills, you spot yet another target. You aren't an expert huntsman, but tracking and shooting are still within your skill set. Moving unnoticed, you draw your bow, then set your sight on the wild pig. Squinting one eye, your hand guides the arrow tip, aligning the target with the trajectory in your mind. Then, let go. The arrow pierces the air and lands precisely on the body of the boar. It squeals in agonizing pain and runs off. A futile effort, you follow the trail of blood to find the dying animal at the end of it. You end its suffering and claim your hefty prize into a game bag made out of treated leather to contain messy carcasses. You look at the sky and tell the time. Sunset is nearing, judging by the subtle hue of orange and red between the clouds. That signals the end of your hunting session. With another day's work done, you start to return to the city. Just before you set foot on the trail leaving the forest, you hear a loud thud nearby. It appeared to be fairly close and definitely sounded unnatural. It won't get dark for another hour or so. A peek wouldn't hurt. Tempted by your curiosity, you decide to quietly investigate. Underneath a distant tree, you spot a concerning sight. A fairly large individual who appears to be wounded, sitting on the ground, leaning against a tree trunk. Strangely, the area around him is completely unscathed, with no trace leading up to this location or a sign of struggle. It is as if he appeared out of nowhere. Walking closer, you can see him tending to his injuries, too focused to notice your stealthy footsteps. A muscular wolfkind with an exaggerated garments that are now soiled in dirt, seemingly indicating status. His body is coated in a layer of oddly colorful fur with an unusual pattern, one that you've never seen on anyone else. His focus is currently consumed by his right ankle, with a faintly green magical glow in his hand. He seems to be healing himself. It is an unexpected sight, one that you could almost describe as taboo. It's almost as if you're not supposed to be here. You try to fake cough to alarm him of your presence. It is rude to just stand here and stare after all. His ears immediately perk up and he slowly raises his head. With majestic blue eyes, his gaze locks onto yours. Despite his injured state, his expression remains stern and condescending. Over a few seconds, he gradually registers your person. His look twists into an expression of disdain, seemingly not enjoying your presence. And now I am to be humiliated after all that ill-deserved hatred. This ire and indignation I suffer, how laughable. Bearing the pain, he says in a deep voice, then chuckles to himself darkly under his breath. I mean, it's being kind of rude. Are you okay? The wolf hears your generic regards and doesn't bother replying. He then struggles to get up on his own, forcing his legs to abide by his will. Using the staff as support, he successfully finds balance despite his weakened state. The figure stands towering over you, way taller than the average wolf kind that you've met. With a free hand, he dusts off dirt and debris off from his fur and clothing. With a significantly better appearance, his focus then shifts onto you. His gaze alone causes you to feel an unnerving unease, as if you're being judged for the very act of existing. Explain yourself, peasant. Who are you and where is this? Extremely rude and condescending as you expected, but his overwhelming presence and serious demeanor still force you to take his words seriously. With the vagueness of the question, it would seem that he is not native to Arth. You try to provide a satisfactory answer. This is the forest just outside the outskirts? You inform, yielding a tiny nod of approval from the imposing wolf. Still stern in his expression, his gaze shifts away from your face to think for a moment. What is your duty? Duty? What a strange way to word it. I was hunting, and I was about to return to the tavern before you... You search your mind for words to phrase the incident, that he appeared out of nowhere, better, but you struggle to do so. So, I trust that you know your way back to that establishment? Yes, but... Why the hesitation? I take it that you want me to lead you back there. Indeed. He stays unemotionally, either not grasping your subtle discomfort or thinks so highly of himself that he assumes that he can simply command you around. It is a privilege of most to aid me, peasant. I don't know you respectfully. Money speaks louder for peasants. I'd like compensation for my time. I can tolerate it only if you stop calling me peasant. It is fine, follow me. I can tolerate it only if you stop calling me a peasant. Tss. He clenches the staff in his hand, obviously annoyed by your audacity. Esteemed needs to be earned, but consider it done. Thanks. I would hate to help and get insulted for it. Now onwards. The sky rapidly darkens as the sun begins to disappear over the horizon. Despite the interruption to your schedule, you manage to return to the city before it gets dark outside, the foreign wolf still tailing your steps. He remained vigilant as he walked with you, though his body language got less pretentious as he reached the city where some of the other townsfolk gave him the stink eye. The strange wolf also looked intrigued by the mundane streets and the buildings, but otherwise stayed quiet throughout the walk. Despite his effort to hide his unfamiliarity, it becomes increasingly obvious that he doesn't belong here. You ask him some questions before getting to the tavern, to liven up your time with him, and to snoop a little more. You aren't from around here, are you? How did you end up in that state back in the forest? Come on, I can keep secrets. Are you like a rich noble who got robbed and got lost? Or did you suffer some technological mishap? Asterik is the center of technology. You can't know for certain, but perhaps they have some kind of advanced technology that teleported the prince here. He looks away and stays quiet for a moment, as if thinking how much he can share. He ultimately refuses to answer, but instead asks you back after making sure that nobody is eavesdropping. What is this place? Moonrest, capital of Arth. Does something pique your interest? The structures are quite advanced. He looks at the buildings, common housings, stalls and workshops, things that you can find in any city. Really? These are a common sight. Our civilization is styled very differently. We do not favor individualism to this extreme degree. I assume that it is some sort of tribal or rural city. You're starting to catch on. He nods and grins for the first time, approving your assumption. I must avoid the details for now, but I can dispel some of your doubts. My name is Rangadit Verk, Prince of Vergnor, the place I came from. An enemy of mine sold his soul to a demon, and utilizing dark arts, I was exiled in an ambush. That led to the scene where you saw me in that sorry state. He says, with a slight hint of anger in his words. If he speaks the truth, then he must have somehow managed to digest everything during the walk. Why are you telling me all this just now and not earlier? Because I have come to the conclusion that I need allies to return to my throne. Your otherworldly experiences and skills will be useful. It would also be preferable of you to be completely quiet about your peculiar experience today. In short, this guy doesn't want you to be in his way. But a demon, dark arts, I don't really want anything to do with that. Worry not. I ask only for your aid in my travels. I will not have you deal with that and risk your own safety. Sorry, I suppose princes can't relate to this too easily, but I can't just suddenly and on command become your guide. I have a job, for example. Rank, True, but what do you do for a living that makes you unavailable? I complete quests from the tavern, or from Adventurers Guild if there are quests for the lowest rank. Out of the 5 standard ranks of the guild, you scored wood, which is the starting point for all, bearing the exceptionally talented or with prior training. You would settle for such a trivial occupation when I offer you so much more? Huh? The treasury of our kingdom contains unsurmountable wealth, as well as relics and artifacts. One measly goblet would be enough to provide you a luxurious lifestyle for the rest of your days. Join me on my journey, be my subordinate, and you will have my favor when I return to my rightful position as a prince. I never forsake my words. Sensing your hesitation, he adds, It is a tempting offer, but not one without drawbacks. His aura of superiority will take time to adjust to, for one. He appears truthful, and all this seems convincing, but it could also be a very well-made scam. The adventure sounds fun, however. The guild would never offer something akin to this to your rank. I need to think about this. Then do, but make it quick. My plans are to be set in motion tomorrow morning. That fast? Do you not need time to let everything sink in? No, I have very little time to waste on self-reflection. Suits you well, I guess. Then you find yourself stopping, disturbing your train of thought. You've managed to get to the entrance of the tavern. Let's just get some food for now. You can proceed. I have not the hunger just yet, and I shall look around this place by myself. Okay then. Have fun, you can probably find me dining if you need me. Give me your name before you proceed. Oh, sorry. Izo. Nice meeting you, Gaddy. Due to your incompetence, you can simply call me Ran. He grunts before walking away elsewhere. His reaction was quite amusing to watch. You proceed to the tavern, deliver the results of your hunt to the kitchen before getting some food at the table by yourself. You eat and drink to fill your stomach up with food and booze. Finally, some time alone from that wolf. Something about meeting this wolf tired me out. Why? Isn't it what I wanted? A fun splash of color to these boring days? A taste of what it feels like to be alive? So why am I hesitating? Emptying mug after mug, you find yourself drinking your worries away. The thoughts are too loud and noisy today. Drowning them out for a momentary pleasure feels better. It isn't for me. Everyone has to work and I am no exception. I shouldn't even think about it. Yet, I hesitate to refuse him. A part of me yearns to join him, as impossible as that is. Why? What do I want? You raise your mug to get its refill once more, but something within the cup catches your attention. Your own reflection blurred by your own vision, mirroring your flawed perspective. Commodity is comforting. Getting out there and making a name for yourself is not for you. You're sure of it, or at least the sloth within you is. The nature to stick to a fundamental plan, no matter how fractured, persists within every individual. It is an inertia against uncertainty as a protective mechanism, yet this overlooks other elements of the happiness you seek. And the ridiculous conflict sparks once more whenever the time arrives, be it a sense of opportunity or motionlessness. Fortunately, awareness is the solution. The simplest thought is enough for a difference. It is only a shame that you can't even get one moment of peace. Ugh. What is this even? The feeling of your snout slamming on the table slaps you back to reality. Holy shit. I should get back to my room. But is that voice? This is unreasonable. It is how it is. Behind a small crowd of spectating patrons, you see Ran standing in front of the counter, negotiating with the innkeeper. While the prince seems serious, the innkeeper replies with apathy and gives no real care to the wolf's worries, simultaneously dealing with other patrons' inquiry and purchases. Upstairs, room 18. He says to another patron next to Ran and hands them a key before marking the room occupied. Does it not speak to you how inconsiderate your rules are? Sorry, it is explicitly stated to not accept non-standard currencies. It's the norm everywhere. Normally, adventurers are expected to do the exchanges themselves, but I see you're a bit stupid. The patrons around the area laugh heartily to the wolf's annoyance. Another hand brings the innkeeper a few silver, and he offers another set of keys. Upstairs, room 21. Why are you still here? Go away. I have stated multiple times that I need a room. I cannot settle for anything less. Sorry, but you play by our rules here. We do not do charity. That invite all the beggars. Well, your kind, I'd wager. Or you could step outside. Just don't mind the stench of unkept streets and the creeping cold. Ugh. The innkeep continues to reply, which doubles as entertainment to the others nearby. He must be an expert dealing with problematic people. Ran remains assertive, but seems to be losing more and more of his composure. He fails to realize everyone is obligated to help him, and that you were only kind to him. Or he is desperate for a room, as he is basically begging, but with royal manners. Let's keep wasting both of our times here. Surely you have an image to uphold. Your metal chunks suit a smith or Lambard. Sell it and come back tomorrow. I cannot be suffering a restless night. That simply cannot happen. Oh no. Are you going to beat me up and barge into a room instead? Your foolish display is certainly tempting me to. The tension between them is rising, the innkeeper escalating the tension with his remarks to the powerless Ran. As comedic as this scene is, you find yourself emerging from the crowd to stop the two from getting into a fight. It won't be great for you if anyone notices the prince walking with you just an hour ago. What are you? Oi. I hate it when they do that. Just stop. I have... You grab onto Ran's arm and pull him away to the upstairs rooms. Trusting you despite your tipsy state, he doesn't struggle against your pull and matches your hurried pace. You eventually reach your room and unlock the door. Your eyes close on their own as you see the familiar room once more, your body yearning to collapse. You feel your arm held and supported around the wolf's shoulders, his other arm wrapped around your waist. With a surprisingly gentle touch, he helps you walk the final few steps before lowering you on the bed. Your body sinks into the comfort of the soft fabrics. Carried away by the calmness, your consciousness drifts away. The dislikable birds wake you up once more. The noise they make cuts through the layers of fog in your head like an alarm. Fragments of memories appear in your mind as well as a headache. What happened last night, while surreal, was definitely real. You struggle up and sit on the bed while your eyes adjust to the blinding lights that gradually become tolerable. You scan your surroundings looking for a very specific person. And sure enough, you spot the wolf's belongings on the distant table, with his magical staff resting against the wall. He's sleeping in a small wooden chair, his backpack supported by a hard backrest. His arms are crossed, probably because there's no place for them to rest on. In fact, the chair is barely able to fit him. How? They can't be comfortable. Despite the hangover from overindulgence last night, the view of this prince activates your neurons enough to piece the puzzle back together. Soon enough, he wakes up as well, standing up after a huge yawn that half resembled a growl. Morning. His eyes are visibly tired and his posture is less rigid than before from the lack of quality sleep. Good morning. Did you, sleep well? Obviously no, as you absolutely needed that bed. I can tolerate resting in such poor conditions only once. He moves to the window and gazes at the outside view. Hey, sorry, but I got too wasted to think of getting you your own room. It didn't occur to me before that they don't take foreign money. I appreciate your honesty. However, it would be deceitful of me to say that a better room would have allowed me proper rest. Is something the matter? I have 2 issues. First, my internal clock was disturbed as I was affected by the spell. Yesterday the night arrived at what felt like 2 p.m. to me. Second, my mind was too restless to reasonably comprehend everything and come up with an appropriate plan. It must be a lot for you to take in. You're free to nap some more if you'd like. Not necessary. I'll get some more sleep too if you do, and I really need that. My head still hurts a bit. The wolf looks up at the sky past the window and quietly grumbled. Yet your slumber has lasted around 10 hours already. 10? He gives you a nod and 0 consolation to your immense shame. Life has given me too much shit lately, you know? Thus you must plan and struggle against the disasters as I am doing, not delude yourself from the impact. I can't understand one thing, sir. My head is still pounding. You rub your head to soothe your headache. He sees your state and discontinues the conversation, but his intention to disregard your pain and begin the day is obvious. I have crafted a plan after hours of comprehending my situation, but it is built on loose assumptions. Now you shall become useful. Rise from the bed and compose yourself. I have inquiries that you will answer. Let's talk over breakfast downstairs. Not like anyone would care to eavesdrop. You really need something to cure the hangover. Agreeing with you, Ran walks away from view and waits near the door. You try to avoid being as too lazy and pull yourself together in record time. You grab your belongings and lead him downstairs. Early in the morning, most of the tables are empty as per usual, with Ran following you. You get to a table and also grab the waiter's attention. The few other people don't seem to even acknowledge the prince, except for the barkeep you personally know, who keeps eyeing you with a subtle look of, really? The wolf takes some time to go through the menu, before settling with a fairly expensive stew with bread. Seeing your tired face, he decided to not bombard you with questions yet. He instead rests his eyes, with arms crossed. Eventually the waiter delivers your warm food. The fragrant, diverse plate consisting of bread, cheese, salted meat, and eggs slowly works their magic in removing your headache. The wolf stares at you with pity while ripping a small piece of bread to dip in the stew. Manners. Did you not see how the others cheered with mouthfuls of food last night? Yes, but I expected some degree of self-respect from you. Nah. You stack a piece of meat and cheese on top of buttered bread, then deliver it to your mouth. Looking straight at Rand in the eye, you chew with your mouth open. A moist and slippery sound escapes your mouth whenever your jaw closes. You somehow regret this. The wolf makes no comment, but is certainly reconsidering every part of this partnership he initiated. With your point proven, you swallow the food and return to the topic. So, what do you need to ask? I need to know how magical items are handled. But before that, introduce me to this adventurers guild that you have brought up before. I think that, in essence, they try to regulate the activity of adventurers so that we don't run out of monsters to kill, probably. For us normal people, it's where people become ranked adventurers and bigger quests are posted. You can't embark on an adventure without the guild's permission. Technically, the seas and abyss are on some sort of gray area, but an abyss monster's sneeze can probably kill us both, just so you know. Makes sense. So, one will be able to find magical goods if they are sufficiently skilled and worthy? Not quite. The guild specifies the payout of each quest. You must return magical loot you find, if any. Supposedly, it protects adventurers from potentially unknown dangers, improves fairness and consistency of each mission, and helps the guild to regulate the flow of magical items. Those are some elaborate reasons to justify a sizable cut. I know, although, to give them credit, you need years to learn some of the really specialized magic to fully comprehend a magic item. How complicated. You can read the whole official document at the guild, if you'd like. Might just take an hour or so. Let's just say only the guild has a dedicated team to determine the properties of magic items. You might accidentally burn your own face using an unidentified wand, so you might as well hand it in. The guild resells most magic items if it is deemed safe enough anyways. Problematic ones are probably stashed instead. That complicates things a little, but it should only be a minor setback. I am considering acquiring an item to teleport us back, for your reference. Are you sure that you can't just walk back there? No, that would be impossible. Well, depending on how far you were from, either a teleport or a warp scroll will do. A spell scroll. Yeah, even the commoners without a magic background can produce effects with one of those. It gets exponentially harder to craft the stronger they are, though. Prices also ramp up. He lets out a brief expression of annoyance. To acquire the scroll that I need shall be the goal, then. Not to discourage you, but it might take years of work to buy that. I don't even know how expensive it is. It might take you years alone, but I do not start from scratch. Sensing your confusion, he temporarily lets go of the utensils and picks up his staff. He takes his wooden staff and hits the tavern floor lightly with its end. The green floating crystals glow with energy, and then a flock of birds is manifested from its glow, materializing into flesh and feathers before flying away. Summoning magic, and an impressive yet harmless display at that. I assume that you use magic judging from that staff. Not to this degree, though. I have no need to reveal my strength to you, until now that we've formed a partnership. I, didn't really agree to that yet? If not, why do you aid me so eagerly? If my status holds no weight here, surely the only reason that you cooperate is mutualism. Mutualism? I am just friendly like a normal person. Do you even know what that means? It is only you that sounds so cold all the time. I see. Your kind is simply difficult to interpret. If you do not wish to be my partner, shall I leave now? I tell you, your attitude will get you in trouble one day. He looks at you unamused with arms crossed, expecting an answer to his question. You find yourself sighing. From how you've chatted with him in peace this morning thus far, perhaps you did unconsciously default to accepting the deal. Fine, but I reserve my rights to leave. Without a doubt. You really think that you're strong enough to climb the ranks quicker? Indeed. My predicament will also likely get us in contact with some powerful figures. I have to get a fraction of your confidence one day. Is that a compliment or an insult? He clears his throat. When we are done with food, we shall proceed to the guild. There you will provide me with more details and information. I can bring you there, yes, but you should ask the staff instead when we get there. They can get your adventure certification there for your obscure plan to work to. The two of you took some time to finish the breakfast. You pay for his part as well, but remind yourself to charge him back later. The Adventurers Guild is a short 30-minute walk away from the tavern. The magnificent building, exquisitely built and decorated in vibrant red and white banners and flags, giving off a grandiose atmosphere inside and out. How clean and orderly, even the air smells fresh. But that is deceiving. Behind the elegant decorations and shiny promises is a road that isn't talked about enough. A steep road paved with nothing but pretentiousness and elitism. Only gifted warriors and mages are given the support to survive this road, respectable from the resource viewpoint, but still so disappointing. Alas, Ran can find the most aid here. Walking inside, the first that greets you, too, is an enormous hall, inside of which are numerous people minding their own business. The reception desk is just a little further in. The corridors on the left and right connect to even more rooms and facilities. The training room, common vault, workbenches, notice board, none of which are useful for now. The wolf only needs to speak to a receptionist. There it is, up to par with your standards, Prince. This entire place is a work of art. Unfortunately, this unfamiliar architectural style causes its beauty to elude me. You'll get used to it. This is the headquarters of all adventurers guilds in Arth. Though admittedly the quests here are often out of my league, so I barely come here nowadays. Rand glanced at the surroundings before queuing at the reception desk for his inquiries. You stay next to him just in case. It doesn't take long before you two see a small and fair-looking owl folk behind the counter, adequately dressed in guild uniform. He eyes up Ran, who is towering over him, his head having to tilt up at around a 70-degree angle. Quite handsome fella. What can I help you with? I would like a brief introduction to quests. How so? Why so? How much do you want to know? Simply give me a summary with the utmost important details intact. Ahem. He clears his throat. Adventurers are split into 6 ranks: wood, silver, gold, mithril, orichalcum, and champions. This represents experience. You must register and pass an entry exam with the judges. The adjudicators will decide your starting rank. You speak. Then, you must know quests on board are available to adventurers. Difficulty is just a suggestion. Even woodies can group up silver-level quests. A subtle blow to your waning confidence, albeit unintentional. He blinks at the large wolf a couple of times as his babbling comes to a stop. Rand takes a moment to digest the words that flew at him at high speed before turning to your direction. You should learn from him. Izo? I'm gonna call him Izo. Compliant and effective. You can't talk to me like that. I'm your attendant. The receptionist continues to look up at Ran attentively. Shall I need any preparation for this entry exam? Possibly. Conceivably, perhaps. You must focus on making your best display of strength. Only one chance. They disregard external powers like one-use potions and magic armor though. No need to prepare in that way. Well, do you need to warm up properly or something? You see Ran looking down at his staff, then tightening and relaxing his grip to assess something. No, we may proceed. That means that I should arrange an entry exam for you, sir. Should I? Shall I? Do I? Affirmative. Name is Ran. You do not have to rush your speech either. Sorry, work habits. Nice, needy nice. We have an empty slot in half an hour actually. This guy had an emergency. That is too convenient to be an emergency, more likely that he just ran off. Did he mention what the emergency is? Oh, explosive diarrhea, possibly from rotten stale bread. Does that incur any charges? We're normally forgiving. You won't be fined if you have any evidence of your claims. In this specific case, we would prefer not to see the evidence, though. Ahem, if that is too rush for your taste, there are also more time slots in 2 days. No need. It shall be accomplished today. Alrighty. Ground floor, room 003. Just knock to enter at 10:30. Much appreciated. You're welcome, handsome sir. Observing from behind Ran, the eyes of the small owl shine with admiration. Ran walks away and gestures for you to follow. That was convenient. Lucky us. Given the circumstances, I say that it is well deserved. But no preparation needed, not even some time to rest up properly and do some training. You only got one chance, so you have no one to blame if you got rusty. Which part of me looks rusty to your mindless eyes. Hunting and material training are essential parts of every noble's bespoke routine. Rest assured I am strong. Right. Sorry, just the stereotypes are getting to me. From a simple glance, the wolf does boast a muscular physique that indicates anything but a sedentary lifestyle often enjoyed by nobles. His past displays of magic weren't poor either. Have you any memories of when you had the entry exam? It was a few years ago and it was just trying to pass, really. Nothing noteworthy really happened. Should I make something up? It was straightforward. It was straightforward. Just how you would expect someone testing your capabilities. Is that so? I shall approach this casually then. He then stays quiet after getting what he needed. It seems that even his speech is goal-oriented, and unapologetically so. Just what kind of hidden society gives rise to this kind of person? Without other topics to discuss, Ran walks to the rest area and sits to meditate until the time is right for you two to move. The minutes pass and you find yourself in front of a door marked with 003. I think that I can go with you and spectate. The owl didn't mention anything about spectators, right? What? Are you interested in my performance? He says with a quiet grunt, although his expression not showing particular disapproval. Just curious, you know. You're still quite mysterious to me, not something unreasonable to ask, no? Time shall reveal everything, but you do deserve the right to see me fight. Come. You nod. Ran gently knocks on the decorated door before pushing it open, revealing a large hall, empty except for a weapon rack on the left and a table near the back, seated with 3 judges. Adjudicators. No description found. Striding with confidence, Ran walks towards the center of the room, carefully maintaining his air of elegance and poise. You wait at the back to not interfere. Among the 3 of them, the middle one seems significantly shorter, and the one to the right is sleeping. The figure at the left of the table speaks with his voice amplified by magic. Welcome to the Adventurers Guild. Are you Sir Randgaddy Verk? That is correct. Delightful. We're glad to have your talent. We shall begin your entry exam at once. The figure stands and walks towards Ran. His increasingly apparent fins and hetero-circle tail reveal his Sharkin identity. First section, melee combat. Pick any weapon available on the rack or one that you've brought. My staff will do. Very well. Just remember, no magic and you must stop all aggression once you're asked to. Beat him up! The middle creature squeaks, causing the shark to smile awkwardly. He picks up a trident before coming to a stop a few meters away from Bran. I am set. Confident, eh? 3, 2, 1. Shouting go, he dashes forward with a trident raised next to his head. He aims and flings it at Ran, who manages to sidestep the projectile that gets lodged into the wooden floor. While Ran is on the back foot, the judge continues his assault, attempting a takedown on Ran, who backs off a step too far and now has ample time to swing his staff from the left side of the shark, aiming for his neck. Stop. You see the shark closing his eyes to brace for the hit, but Ran had already stopped millimeters away from his throat. Nice control. Well done. That is good enough for this section. You suck. Shut up. He helps himself up and resumes the talking, ignoring the distant squeak as he picks up the trident. Next up is a magical evaluation. I take it that you know spells? Yes. Then it'll be a spell augmented combat. We'll repeat the same exercise with magic now aloud, but you shall stop all aggression when you're asked. Proceed. Not a fan of chats, huh? 3, 2, 1. Shining a grin, he throws a trident at Ran once more, imbued with water magic, accelerating it forward. You see the trident flying into the wolf's direction, but then, grasping vines break through the planks from the floor and snatch the trident by one of its edges. Wide-eyed in confusion, the sharkkin doesn't notice the planks creaking beneath him until it is too late. Vines sprawl around and latch onto his arms and body, pinning him in place. Alas, the judge had already admitted defeat internally, seeing his signature move nullified as easily as that. Why? Are you even here? Quite that. Your display is exaggerated and trite. Well, there goes my mood today. This mandatory job experience certainly destroys my psyche. And no, that question was an act. You don't need the guild with that potential. Just go learn from a druid master for a decennium or so. Alas, I have no time. The wolf lowers his staff and the vines slowly retract and disappear, freeing the shark. He doesn't seem to take it well, however. I hate your guts. Don't just dismiss the question, damn it. I didn't train for 3 years just to be beaten by some rankless novice. I am not a novice, but I do not owe you a proper answer. I don't owe you a decent grading either, don't forget this. He stares at Rand for 2 seconds with malice and hatred before walking back to the table. The examiner's tantrum baffles you. Rand is also staring at the judges in disbelief, but the others look unfazed about what the Sharkin just said. Hey Frit, you're up. Be wary of his grass. Finally! The second judge is a tiny raccoon with a surplus of energy. He bounces towards the weapon rack, picking up 2, 3, 4 daggers, 2 for each hand, and stops in front of the wolf. Consider yourself lucky to face me. Your shark friend doesn't seem to take losses too well. You must not get developed examinees often. You talk funny, but yeah. Why does he get to do most of the fighting? Reno never gets a chance to do this exam. He's almost never needed. In that case, you should consider yourself lucky to face me. Enough talk. Have at thee. Without warning, Frit throws a dagger at the wolf, who promptly dodges. Unlike the Sharkin, he is exceptionally agile and appears before him in an instant, catching Ran by surprise. Grunting, the wolf attempts to back off from the tiny rogue, with the staff channeling power to summon wolves around him. The nimble raccoon predicts this from experience and plunges his dagger through each manifestation of magical energy before they manage to materialize. The summons dissipate into nothingness while the raccoon rapidly closes the distance, approaching the range useful for his daggers. He screeches and hops, springing to strike at the towering wolf's body. Barely able to react, Ran elevates the ground beneath him with a stump in hopes of messing with the raccoon's accuracy. Frit thus lands only a scrape on the wolf's belly. Ran uses this window of opportunity to raise his staff, controlling the stump that is now adjacent to the smaller creature. Numerous branches grow from the stump and attempt to grab onto the raccoon in the air. It connects for a second, but then the rogue vanishes into a black mist and reappears a few meters away in the blink of an eye. But one momentary contact was enough for the poisonous sap of the branches to be applied to the raccoon's skin. Knowing this, Ran takes a moment to assess his wound, a bleeding cut next to his abdomen. He would not be standing if the dagger had reached deeper. I hope that it's With an obvious drive for more action, another dagger gets thrown, though this time the druid anticipated and didn't even flinch. The raccoon uses his magic to reappear behind Ran's back. However, a thick wall of root rises behind Ran, blocking the backstab. Seeing this, the raccoon disappears and reappears again by his side, but the druid senses him and blocks his dagger with his staff's superior range. Ran is now completely focused on defense and disregarding all forms of aggression. With an undivided focus, he senses the raccoon and reacts in time whenever he appears, like an impenetrable fortress. The little creature, on the other hand, starts to grow frustrated. Ran's strategy can be seen as cowardice in the other lenses. Enough! Your tactics are sharp but plain, and no same trick works on me twice. He asserts, his voice loud, yet deep and resonant, and his words echo throughout the room. I am invincible so long as I am vigilant. We are done here. No need for more injuries. Eck, what are you, a snail? How disgusting. And you're treating this exam as if your life depends on it, instead of showcasing your skills to us. You didn't think that we'd actually kill you here, right? Reno, a round of pain, go away. The raccoon shouts back at the table, specifically at the individual at the right who is still half asleep. A single dismissive hand gesture and the room surges his energy. Over the span of half a minute, the venue becomes tidy once more and the combatant's injuries are also completely reverted. That seems to mark the end of the entry exam as the raccoon also bounces back to the table, joining the other two. You're not sure how Ran had done for the exam, but his display of strength is quite memorable. You? Quitting? Quiet. Do your thing. Thank you, Sir Ran. We'll discuss and decide your rank in a short notice. Please speak to any of the receptionists after 4 p.m. They'll inform you of your rank and privileges, if any. Most pleasurable. You have my gratitude. The Sharkin's attitude and speech returns formal, but his previous very personal warning still lingers in your mind. Probably best not to get confrontational about it, however. The wolf proceeds to give them a polite bow as a farewell before leaving the room. You follow suit. His performance shows you that he's at least truthful about the strong druid part of his persona. You're still skeptical about the prince part, but everything so far aligns with his explanations. Hey, Ran? Yes? You're quite strong. How long did it take for you to learn that? A while. You stare at him, insisting on an actual answer. His reluctance yields slightly. Rignor is a city amidst a vast forest. It is to be expected that druidism is fostered. With ample dedication, even the untalented can be a capable nature caller. What can calling nature do for you? A druid who isn't a recluse isn't the most common sight around here, so I'm curious. For me, mainly conjuring spirits, restoration magic, and bending nature to my will. You give him a confused look to prompt him to elaborate. It is not necessarily easy to explain to an outsider, but I shall do my best. For us, deer is the primitive force behind natural phenomena, the drive behind the cycle of life. We try to understand and harness the power. Some create or lessen decay, some hope to find omniscience through understanding. I simply focus on the present and the living. Make no assumption, however, this does not have to equate with my mindset. You won't find me giving tender care for plants, for one. He is quietly growling to himself. Did he speak a little too much for his liking? I think I get it. And don't worry. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? I simply need time adjusting to your prying curiosity. You'll find that most people are curious about a new face, prince or not. Quit being so cautious if you're stuck with me in this journey of yours. At least open up to me, perhaps. Grr. It is not that simple, and my words carry weight. And he is deep in thought again. After a moment, he switches to another topic to avoid the awkwardness. He glances over to the mechanical clock behind you, then looks back at your face. There is an abundance of time before 4. We will proceed to the smithery to exchange my valuables into usable coins. Then, with those, we will purchase some necessary supplies. The innkeeper was unfortunately correct, and I must respect the land's business customs. Necessary stuff like armor? No, I need basic survival tools like knives, rations, and camp supplies. Most armor is detrimental to my fighting style. Oh, okay. Adventuring rations won't really suit your taste, though. Do you have an example to show? You search from your backpack and retrieve a sizable piece of dry biscuit, hard cheese, and some nuts. His face displays genuine repulsion and concern as he looks at the content in your hand. Pretty. Throw this away. It is just a little old. Is this block even edible? He squints at the biscuit and requests one, and you hand it over. He uses his claws to tap against it before trying to snap it in half with both hands. His biceps contract for just a moment before he quickly gives up. This will only cause a chipped tooth. Don't be ridiculous, you're supposed to boil this in water or fat. I see. My mistake, but there must be something less dull. We can take a look, no promises though. Let us move. Time goes by as you shop for provisions. With the smith and merchant profiting off the deals, confrontations like the ones back at the inn were avoided. The metal chunks were remarkable in terms of purity, and he got paid a good amount of gold coins after a service fee. He then purchased some rather costly camping and exploration supplies. Not wanting to bother with his financial management at all, you said nothing and returned to the guild with him. It is still the same sight with the different people. Ran waits in line to see the receptionist for information. By coincidence, it is the same owl fellow that handled the wolf's inquiry. He speaks before Ran even asks. I got news for you, sir. News. Good. Perhaps bad news. News. Are you really supposed to know whether the news is good or not? No, but I took a tiny little peek in there. I will not question your professionalism. Kindly reveal to me the outcome directly. Okay, silver. What? I have almost bested the second judge. How was such a feat worthy a mere silver rank? Rand looks in your direction, wanting your acknowledgement of his skills. Yes, I was a spectator, so they probably had to decide between silver and gold. Perhaps your martial skills didn't impress him enough? No, this must be the result of that inept grudge and his ability to make an unbiased judgment. Ah, I see. Can I make a little comment if you don't mind? Please do. Entry exam judges change every week, so you may appeal if one or more knew you and sabotage your ranking. However, he looked left and right before revealing something to the two of you quietly. But your impression, attitude, and manners during the exam are actually part of the criteria. What? How does that make sense? You're mostly going to fight and explore, but you'll also be dealing with contractors sometimes, especially for more complex missions. It is not stated, otherwise everyone will just pretend. I should have hinted to you a little. Sorry, mister. You are far from being at fault, but still. He groans out of annoyance and rubs his temple with one hand as he understands the meaning behind the Sharkin's words now. The owlfolk retrieves an envelope and slides it underneath the glass panel before continuing his rapid, working tone. On a more positive note, welcome to the Adventurers Guild. This is your complimentary starter kit containing a common map, a printed copy of guild regulations, and other information. This means that we can begin taking quests from the board? Yes, just a quick note. The guild will not take responsibility for injuries that you may sustain during your adventures and will not compensate you for any damages under most circumstances. Most of this technical language. Look into my eyes and tell me if I am weak. No, sir. Half-heartedly, Rand stared at the owl, causing him to flinch slightly. His admiration returns even stronger, however. I shall now take my leave. Take care. Farewell, farewell. As you two walk away from the desk to somewhere less busy to talk, Rand turned back to face you with more dissatisfaction on his expression. Beyond his constant sternness, there is also now a hint of concern in his eyes despite his subconscious attempt to mask it. He surely held himself to the standard of achieving more than silver, and his failure in doing so is giving him his subtle worry. A worry of shifts or postponements of his carefully crafted plan, which also affects you, who is accompanying him on this trip. He stood there and just looked at you, his calculating mind thinking of words to say that would not betray his shame, but nothing came. The silence creeps in and becomes increasingly loud. I mean, honestly, I would have expected better from Prince as well. Whether a mocking comment or a risky tactic, you say the savage words to the wolf. Like adding fuel to a fire, his spirit is completely ignited once more, burning stronger than before. This is but a minor hindrance. One that will be overcome with my superior strength or an ill-suited rank. Seemingly recovered from a temporary low, he proceeds to the quest board. Pinned to the board are multiple fine parchments, each with every detail of a quest. Unlike the board in the tavern relying on trust and customs, the quests here are of higher esteem, dealing with more important matters. Either being aware of that or concerned with your rank being wood, the Wolf Prince's attention is only on the easier side of silver quests. After a short while of decisions, he asks if you're comfortable with one that he deems worthwhile. This first quest is a relatively simple one, traveling to a distant cave that should have ore deposits formed around this time of the year. With only mundane dangers like wild animals on the way and possible stalactites from the cave ceiling, you agree with this decision. Nothing? Yes, sir. We have no clue. How fun. I wouldn't recommend thinking too much about it. You are busy. Inform the ministry. I want their records. Now you're wasting my time as well. I have a good reason. Come on, don't be so cruel to me. 2 days of walking through the vast forest. Searching along the blurry boundary between forest and mountains. But you too get to the Promised Cave. The unique sweet and sour smell of large ore-laden caves is obvious from the entrance. There is no mistaking it. But with the sky already at an orange hue, it seems like the harvesting can wait for the morning to come. Your wolf companion is also aware, and he lets out another soft sigh, one that you have heard countless times on the trip. He has been quiet since the beginning of the journey, troubled by the thoughts, as the reality truly dawns on him. The reality where his birthrights are replaced by his new identity, one where roads aren't paved and making any progress is tiresome and impeded by the bureaucratic nonsense. For these 2 days you have been giving him the space he needs, although you can't stop thinking about the time when he can finally find true acceptance, when he can finally dispel the mysterious fog around him. And inside a small camp amid the lonely scenery of rocks and trees is as good an opportunity you can give him. Seems that we must camp here tonight for our sake. Would you kindly set up both of our camps? I shall go gather firewood. Sure. He removes his camping supplies from his backpack and lays them on the ground for your easy access. He then walks outside in search of fuel, vanishing back into the woods. You first set up the area, knocking loose rocks away to make your camp more comfortable to sit on. Using some of the heavy stones, you pin the tents in place. It took you what felt like hours, but it is relatively easy work. The weather is cool and pleasant, and it is comfortable sitting here and relaxing while you wait for the wolf. Looking outside, the moon gradually appears above the sky. A bright full moon, occasionally hidden beneath tree trunks and scattered clouds, but otherwise perfectly visible. The moonlight illuminates the prince's return, highlighting his physique as well as an armful of dry logs. I took the liberty to harvest some extra berries to accompany your awful, uninspiring rations. He excuses himself for taking so long and laid down some of the firewood in one spot, then lit them ablaze with a small bolt of fire generating from his magical staff. The muscular wolf sits down next to you, staring at the lit campfire, emotionless and still. Is there something that I should know, Ran? Is there something that I should know, Ran? There is, Izo. Is it just so difficult? I apologize, truly. I expected anything but this. He seems unready still, but mentally braces himself to reveal something significant. I do not belong here. Vignor does not belong here at all. I was expelled from my kingdom, banished from my realm, betrayed, forsaken. And with the essence of nature so foreign in this world, it is a miracle that I still retain some prowess. So much slipped out of my control all of a sudden, and now, not even I know how long this will take. I kept it vague, for I do not know how to tell you. I did not know how to face this myself. Unlike his usual polished speech of exceptional extravagance, the revelation was simple and articulate. Behind the stern and composed words is a genuine emotion of loathing, mournfulness, and guilt. For the first time ever, he seemed vulnerable, a being with emotions rather than an overly tough prince barricading every sign of weakness. But now, I have surmounted my single largest insecurity. Telling you the details will finally not be so difficult. Okay. That's a lot. Did you really come from another world? Indeed. I suppose that does harm your understanding of the world. Quite so. I know that other worlds or planes exist, but yeah. To be fair, we are not a different species from a separate evolution. Our genesis was roughly just around 120 years ago. What is a genesis? A powerful wolf kind who single-handedly created the kingdom, the royal family and its servants. Creating people? How is that even... That is honestly beyond my knowledge. He created scrolls of wisdom that shaped our very understanding, and of course, it included logs of his actions. Those records are not complete, however, We lack details as to how he gave rise to everything or how he himself came to be. All that we know is that we are somehow created from him, and that a most diluted presence of his blood in any royal newborn grants immense potential. I take it that you use your potential to master druid craft, given that you're also a prince? Do not simply dismiss my effort, but that is true. How large is this kingdom? I can approximate a population of around 800 people. 800 isn't a huge amount. It is for a secluded kingdom in a huge forest. It is also steadily increasing, which should indicate prosperity. We also needed to keep the meticulous balance between consumption and production to keep the rest motivated. So this place is completely isolated from the rest of the world? Yes, the forest was so far seemingly endless as we expanded our territory. Without connections to other civilizations, our king ruled over the people and led an ordinarily dominion. Sounds like a paradise if it is indeed handled so nicely. Alas, I would not be here if that were the case. What is so special about this world that you're in? It never occurred to me that our world was so vibrant until I got sent away. The nature was bursting with life, even the air itself was lively. Could that just be you blaming the world as you lost your power? You could see it that way, but I personally believe that the opposite is true. Only due to this world's atmosphere being so stagnant did I lose most of my power. I'm still not very sure how this works. He frowns and attempts to think of an example. Imagine gardening. You gain the most yield from providing optimal conditions to vegetations. If you fail, you cripple the function in plants, as well as your own harvest. For a division of magic fathoming nature itself, one of the conditions is staying in the same world. I still don't get it because I'm a dummy. You don't have to. What are the other royal members like? Quite kind of you to ask. There are the direct blood relatives of our genesis, and there are the promoted peasants. I assume that you want to know only the prior. I mean, I'm a bit curious about the peasants too, but sure. The most important figure, Tarvos Stinth, is the present king of Rignor, fairly old of age, but his will is still untarnished. He passed his bloodline down to 4 sons, each naturally gaining the title of prince. The first was Prince Charix, who was a great friend of mine. He had a splendid but rather reckless personality. He passed away at the young age of 15 to the dismay of most. The second born is Your Royal Highness, Prince The third born is Prince Raziel, who was so introverted and uninterested in the royal matters that he was almost aligned with the peasants. The last was a traitor, Knarvolfer, who committed the sacrilegious crime to target and harm one's own brother. He sees the struggle in your face to memorize these names and chuckles. You do not have to memorize their names, except mine, of course. Consider this the backstory of a tale, one that I will continue in blood. Is there a reason for your ridiculous name? Is there a reason for yours? It seems that making light-hearted remarks is an art more complicated than I expected. Oh, I thought that you would insult my name instead. For your question, yes. In fact, every member with noble blood had their name given from seers. Tell me more if you're comfortable with it. Seers are those who study the magic of the future. We recruit them to glimpse into the future that surrounds every royal newborn and design a name in our tongue that encapsulates their pinnacle. For sowing destruction and attaining greatness, I would say that that complexity of my name is well justified. Did you really just say that you're fated to bring destruction? That was indeed a major concern, but the seers could not determine the nature of this destruction. It could be pragmatic solutions for an honorable cause, so worry less over it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you got sent here for a real, reason instead of, being betrayed. How strong were you before? That I can gladly answer. Instead of struggling to maintain control over roots now, I could summon packs of wolves to my aid. I could also call forth whirlwinds or bolts of lightning. It baffles me that you can speak of that sort of mastery so calmly. How long have you been learning this druid magic? Starting from the age of 4, so 22 years. Since 4? That's a lot of dedication. We were required to utilize our gifts through constant pursuit, so dedication isn't exactly the word. There is a reason that the king is enforcing that on us, but that story is for another day, or another update. Anyways, I just happen to be fortunate enough to still enjoy improving my druidity. So you can possibly achieve even more? Do you imagine that I would not be putting the title of Archdruid to my name if I were allowed to? Fair point, you aren't the humble type. I would say that I am not far from that title. Was not far from that title. What were you doing before you were ambushed? Hunting. More precisely, it was early in the morning, shortly after my fair first meal. I had some business to attend to at noon, but my schedule was clear until then. I thus decided to fill the space with a leisurely hunt. I suppose this coward planned this for a while, to find me at my weakest without many witnesses, as he was not supposed to gain access to the same region that I was in. A dirty tactic for sure, but it was effective. You could say that. He only quietly growled to himself at the unbiased statement. Okay, tell me what happened. Thank you for asking. A part of me thought that you wouldn't be interested. It would be rude of me to not learn of an event so important to you. He nodded before describing the scene. My guards and I were taking a short break from the hunting activities. Not expecting any danger, I counted my kills and let my guard down. Then, disaster struck. Unfamiliar figures appeared behind the trees and bushes, outnumbering my few guards. I tried to take my staff and fight, but he appeared in front of me from thin air. He kicked me down to the ground and spoke. Quarrel? Skva? A word that I have never heard before, ominously unsettling, with a seemingly echoing ring lingering in the cold air. I had no time to analyze, and I tried to give this mad, smug face a punch. But my limbs didn't move an inch. I looked down to see dark, ethereal chains binding me in the soil beneath. There was no cold sensation of metal, but the chain still tensed with impossible force the moment that I tried to free myself. The twisted euphoria on his face was not an expression of madness, but that of victory. Oh, and to finally see you squirm like a worm to be squashed. This unbridled joy. You despicable... He swiftly stabbed my knee with a dagger the moment that he heard me speak. My suffering only delighted him further. I would absolutely die to just extinguish your flame here and now. If only the sniffer dogs wouldn't scour the entire forest for a single patch of fur for your whereabouts. So, I have prepared just the perfect thing for you. Around this time, my guards were roughly bound and shoved next to me into the cluster on the ground. What are you? Shh. I've had enough of your voice. But if you're so lucky to come back, I will allow you to tell me the view of the foreign lands. You wouldn't. They will know of this. I will make sure that they don't. Goodbye. Tograr. Expel. Torvik? Saying another incantation, the air itself pulsed with power. A sigil then appeared on the soil beneath us. It glowed a purple most unnatural before the spell fully activated with the insight sucking us into a supernatural space. Then came a fall into complete darkness, broken by fragments of light, with 1,000 invisible hands pulling on my body, dragging me down and away from my guards. In the end, impossible scenery swarmed around me until stabilizing into that of a forest where I ended up actually being. At that moment, I knew that this bastard had secured the victory. A victory that could not be free. That power must have cost him something. I don't know why, but picking the kind of snarky responses or questions sounds more appropriate. He merely spotted your lack of preparation and took advantage of it. Are you really saying that I am to be blamed? Noting your actual opinions towards him, he groaned to himself, then spoke again. The life of a prince isn't a busy one, Eizo. Our king has decent standards and strict requirements for every of his kin. Gnarvolfer and I are not on good terms, but I did not have the time to meddle in his affairs. I have no clue how and why he chose to involve himself with the Dark Guards, risking it all to exile me, who never touched him in the slightest. He seems genuinely frustrated, but he is also avoiding mentioning some elements of his family affairs. There is something else that he still can't just say yet. Why were you not outright killed instead? Are you still suffering from ill effects? Would you know anything about the dark arts used? Why were you not, outright killed instead? Huh? I mean, if he borrowed that power, surely he could just eliminate you directly, no? If my assumption that his power came with a price is correct, then there is a simple answer. The price to completely eliminate me was so great that he preferred the riskier gamble of tracelessly sending me away instead. If that assumption is wrong, then I am clueless. That seems like a really big reach. Are you still suffering from ill effects? No. It seems that his magic was all to restrain and remove me. My knees made a full recovery without any issue. Of course, my druidity is more limited, but I would be surprised if that was also part of his master plan. Would you know anything about the dark arts used? Not a lot, if I must be honest. Our Genesis writings have this description of a witchcraft, which does mention the use of spellword and similar visual components, but no mention of its details, which is more than reasonable. I would not imagine our creators dabbling in such diabolic studies. This is a lot of exposition. Planar travel complicates things a bit. To what degree? Mainly that we can't use warp scrolls to get you home. You would need something similar to a scroll of plane travel or something, which is probably on another level of rarity. I don't even know if it exists. Say, if we are completing more quests at even higher ranks before obtaining the scroll, is that not benefiting you more in terms of the split rewards? I guess that is true, but we are talking about something like potentially 3 more years of adventuring. And you're fine with that? I have but one goal. Return to Rignor. 3 years, 6, even decades, no amount of time will sway me away from that path. Do you expect to regain your strength so soon, if ever? How am I supposed to answer that? I am so unfamiliar as you are in this regard. Perhaps my druidicism will adapt to the deer of this world. Perhaps I will improve with more practice, as I always have. Or perhaps I am trapped within this pit without a conceivable possibility of escape and all my aspirations are doomed to rust. It is an open-ended question. Moving on. Why are you so set on returning there? The examiner back in the entrance exam did raise a good point. You could be a druid master with years of training, then you could possibly achieve even more. Yes, but I have to reclaim my throne, and this grudge is simply too great to ignore at the moment. That grudge makes sense, though how important is this throne to you? Very. I am meant for the next kingship, which is why I am still competing against time to reduce the likelihood of Narvolf for stealing that from me. Do you have a special bond with the people to care that much? As you question his relationship, tension spreads across his face. His claws scratch against the wood of his staff in its grip, betraying his unease. Might be better to ask about this in another update. I hope that I have earned your trust. I have no major complaints regarding you for now. Yes, consider yourself blessed with my trust. Kind of full of yourself, don't you think? Whether out of genuine interest or as a gesture of kindness, you'll inquire about his dramatic tale at length, which he is more than glad to answer. You could sense some alleviation of stress behind his words as well. The reluctance to communicate and form a bond is gone. Still not the chatty type, but that is likely only personality. I cannot oblige you into aiding me in the long term, given the uncertainty surrounding my predicament. It is, however, factual that completing expeditions with me brings you significantly more fortune, and I would enjoy your supervision until my understanding of this world is more sound. Would you mind staying with me for the time being? He stated very matter-of-factly without emotions, giving you no pressure to comply. Helping him is the optimal choice without a doubt, but what matters is your stated intention. I don't mind being your ally until things get too dangerous for my own good. I'll be in for only the loot for now. The moment that it becomes non-advantageous for me, I'm out. Honestly, that would be me. I don't mind being your ally until things get too dangerous for my own good. You are too kind. He looks in your direction, gives you a smile with a gentle gaze at your face. You take a good look at this prince, then at the cave surrounding you. What an uncanny scenario that you've gotten in. But such is the nature of life in this age, where twists and opportunities emerge from every corner. Satisfied with your answer, the prince searches his bag for his rations for the night. Laying down the eating utensils and quality preserved foods, he catches you looking at him. Let us share. Also, I have been curious about how that indestructible block of biscuit tastes, ever since you have informed me of its existence. He turns to face you as he presents the berries and rations to you as well. You spend the rest of the night sharing the meals in peace. To be continued. Okay, that was a lot. First and foremost, that was a lot of exposition. I get having to do it eventually, but that was a lot to just dump on there. And actually, the little funny thing is, if you decide to just sort of stay quiet and not ask Ran, to divulge some of his backstory, he kind of gets a little mad, a little pissed that you're sort of just disinterested in him. And then when you get the option to ask, well, I hope that you can trust me, he's like, well, I mean, I have no other option. I just wish that you would have asked or have been a little bit interested in me and my predicament. But really? Should I be asking? On the topic of that, something that I did notice when I was reading it, because I actually did read this twice, is that sometimes the conversations felt a little hard to read. And you might be wondering, well, what do you mean hard to read? You might actually have noticed it from when I was, reading in the recording, that you kind of had to sit down and then really pay attention to what they were saying, because it sometimes felt a little, I don't want to say disjointed, it just felt sort of like they were saying too much for what they wanted to say. And the story might benefit from having somebody come in and then just going through it and maybe like going through some of the sections and saying like, oh, maybe we can rephrase this so that it's not so, again, hard to read. And I know that's very vague what I'm saying, and I'm not really giving any examples because that would require me to go through the whole thing again and then just like pointing out examples, and I don't really want to do that right now. But there are sections when they're talking, when there's like some internal monologue, and even like when this particular example might be intentional when the main character is at the tavern after finding Ran, where he starts like talking to himself and it kind of doesn't make sense. Is he like becoming philosophical or what? I really don't know, but like it felt very disjointed, and I had to record that section like 3 times because I actually did not know that if you go into preference and you go in advanced options, you could have turned off the drunk effect, and that was actually like making it very hard to read and focus on what I was reading. And I guess that's actually one of the things that I'm talking about, where when I was reading it, I was like, what am I reading? Like, some of the sections could have been rephrased a little just to make it a little bit easier to stay with the story and their conversations, I guess. Again, I should probably be offering examples, but I don't want to. I don't have the time, unfortunately. Other stuff, I mean, I am interested in the whole little, like, sort of Isekai thing where it's not you getting sent to another world, it's this guy, the one right here, who's brought to your world and is basically like a fish out of water. Like, you know, sure, he can still use his druid skills / magic, but it's severely impacted by the fact that he's not really connected to the nature of this world. And like, he's gonna have to learn to adjust to this world and how it works. And that's actually one of the interesting things about this story that I'm finding so far. And I really hope that they continue with that going forward, where it's sort of like a natural progression, where he slowly becomes not acclimatized, well, I guess that might be a word, to the world and how it like works, but that like there's still sort of like little silly moments where he just doesn't get it, that he's not in where he comes from. And like I know right now he just had the whole heart-to-heart with the main character when, you know, you're probing for information and he's saying like, yeah, I don't belong in this world. But like, to have more examples of that would be very interesting. It might add more depth to the character and to the situation, and not just be like, I don't belong in this world, and then just you move on. No, like, I don't belong in this world, and I'm having little moments here and there to prove that I do not. I mean, not to prove, but like to show that, you know, you don't. Having like little faux pas, him still acting like he's a royal and he deserves all the things that comes with being like a royal. Well, not a royal, but somebody of high status, where everyone else is just sort of like giving him the stink eye and things like that. Like, for that just to continue a little bit more, while he eventually comes to I have the word at the tip of my tongue. Where he just, like, you know what I mean. In my head, I have it sort of this being like a story where he goes from being like this, like, kind of stuck up, kind of like, you know, uppity type character, to being a bit more humbled, and to realizing that maybe he wasn't ready for the throne, and that there probably was another reason why he got sent here, aside from it just being a sort of like a just getting rid of you, like a faux assassination attempt. I also don't really see the logic behind him saying like, oh, well, if you really wanted to get rid of me, it would have cost him a lot. Like, I mean, he could have just stabbed you and thrown you into this world and you would have been fine. I mean, he did stab you, but I mean, like, actually, like stab you through the heart. I mean, you were already bound. There was no way that you could have gotten away. Plus, if he was going to send you away, then, you know, there goes the evidence. So, and then the whole thing where it's like, well, it seems like he's kind of not telling you everything, because this is like, well, we didn't get along, but like, you know, I didn't see this coming. I'm like, oh my god. Obviously, this is stuff that's going to be revealed eventually, but yeah, like, these are things with this guy who's, and like I said, I would like to have more examples of him having a hard time acclimatizing to this world and to his new predicament. Like, even though, yeah, he's acknowledging it, but like, let's see it. It adds a little bit of comedy, a little bit of like character building for him. Speaking of character, I do like the fact that you are able to be a little bit snarky to him. And like, for me at least, I would say that it's deserved right now at this point, but like, obviously as the story progresses, you can choose not to be so snarky, because like, maybe he starts learning, like, yeah, you know, maybe I should be a little, like, have my own manners and not expect everybody to just wait on me hand and foot. Like, for example, with the exam, where he was kind of being a little pretentious, a little bit like, ugh, this is just a waste of my time. Let's just get this over with. And then it turns out that you actually have to be presentable to not just like the what they call the adjudicators, the judges, but in the future you have to be like friendly to the people that you're gonna work with or for. And like, right now, that's not really something that he is capable of. So like, yeah. I guess that's it mostly right now. So yeah, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts? You know, write it down in the comments, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Sanctuary yourself or stay up to date with, you know, what's going on with this visual novel that just came out, whenever it is that it came out, I don't remember. You can do so by going down into the link in the description, which should have a direct link for the itch.io page, where you can download the game and play it, or you can just go to itch.io.com and play it yourself. And they do have a Patreon, as you can see right up there, the little orange logo with the P-looking thing that doesn't look like that anymore, unfortunately. I don't know why they changed it. Which I'm assuming should get you early access to build of Sanctuary or behind-the-scenes stuff or whatever, or maybe you just want to support the project, you know, just go there, do that. And they do have a Discord where you can talk about the visual novel there. But yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.